Okay, happy Thursday. This is Coffee Morning Rant with Dan. I'm not back on the radio yet, but I'm not quite moved yet. I'm feeling a little more subdued today, not because of anything bad. I want to speak with that dispassionate legalese and train myself on that. And then when I want to get passionate, let that emotion come forward in a certain way. I'd rather work it out right here on camera than to stand in front of my mirror in the shower, after the shower, and practice my lies, which I know somebody who does, and they watch their microfacial expressions and their other types of nonverbal cues in the mirror to make sure that their lies are matching their words. See, a lot of times what people don't actually understand, or can't quite put their finger on it first, is that truth has a resonance. So does lies. And a lot of times people's body language or facial expressions will not match their words. Just like actions won't always match words. But I know somebody in particular who likes to practice. Politicians do this, agents do this, when they have to convince you of something that's untrue. Now, I've talked about this a little bit before. The tools that are used to motivate you and the tools that are used to manipulate you are two sides of the exact same coin. Maybe that's why I found this yesterday. It's a pretend dime. But they're two sides of the exact same coin: manipulation and motivation. The psychological tools you use, one is to motivate someone into that something to their betterment, and the other one is a manipulation that's something to their detriment. And we have lots of that going on in the world right now. So, one of the things I wanted to do today is a friend of mine, Cory, made a couple shorts a few days ago that really hit home. And it was leading into the kind of show that I wanted to kind of do, or the kind of thing I wanted to sort of talk about. And I'm going to go to this first one. I might just watch both of them and just put them on here and watch both of them. They're shorts, they're only about a minute long. Cory's work can be found at Nito1, Nito1.net. I'll put some links down in the description. He's doing a lot of good work on actual, solution-based building alternative ways of making food and of living outside of a slave society that they're trying to create even more of through manipulation and through the manipulation of your emotions. They're masters at this. I'm going to get to these things. I have more I could be saying, but let's just do these. Let's do the screen capture first. Boop. Alright, so, were you trained to obey? Listen to this very closely. Let me make sure the volume is correct. Okay, good. Were you trained to obey?
Have you ever noticed how fast people obey orders, even when they make no sense? In fact, let me show you this real quick. This is a whiteboard with question marks on it. What do you think the word is behind this whiteboard? In school, you raised your hand. At work, you followed protocol. In life, you stand in line, wait for permission, and rarely ask why. Now, you weren't born that way, and you were trained to obey in the Prussian model of schooling. It's not by accident. Obedience creates predictability, and predictability makes control easier. Larkin Rose, in his book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, explains how most people will do things they know are wrong just because they want to avoid being the one who says no. Because the system doesn't punish you for doing harm, it punishes you for disobeying. So the moment that you realize this, you start to choose again. What's one rule that you follow that you've never questioned? Drop it in the comments. What's on this whiteboard, you ask? Well, it is conscience. Use it. Don't forget that you have it.
That's actually excellent, because order followers often who live and are, especially nowadays, have been brought up within contradictions, and many of those contradictions are in religion, don't follow their conscience. They're just doing their job because these immoral politicians, it's the law, they don't even like it, but I'll get into more of that later. Are you wired for chaos? I'll answer that question. Yes, many of us are, including me. I was wired for that. I'm unwiring myself from it. Let me close this back out. Oh, there's my messy desktop. I am going to go back and turn this off. However, we're going to have my little entrance thingy come back on again. There it goes. So, some interesting points that were made with being taught to obey. And, oh, right there's display capture. I could have done it that way. I gotta keep learning every day. This is great. So let me get rid of the anarchy flag, anarchism, or no, Avengers, abolitionists, whatever you want that A to stand for, if anarchy sounds too chaotic for you. Society has not had anarchy ever on a large scale. We've had chaos instead. And anarchy isn't chaos. Colloquially speaking, I know that's what people think it means, but it means without a ruler or without a master. So let's get rid of that. Let's put on my little slideshow. So the indoctrination starts in these mind control facilities, and I've had a very intimate experience with dealing with an individual who came up in that millennial generation where these places of indoctrination start teaching you how to follow orders and how to obey, and how obedience is looked at as this trait that's very favorable, where disobedience is bad. It's a way to keep control of people. The biggest thing that I've seen in this, now bearing in mind if you're just now watching this and never seen anything else of mine before, I was in law enforcement for 27 years altogether, between security, corrections, police, Marine Corps, more stuff than I even want to name off right now. But these schools are mind control facilities. They're teaching learned helplessness, and how they do that is they want to have complete control and obedience from you. And people are going to have different, even children are going to have this subconscious angst about being in these places. Many of the kids who don't get good grades or have poor attention spans, these are their little defensive mechanisms because they don't want to be here. Nobody wants to have a boss. The 5-year-old in all of us screams, "You're not the boss of me." And then they'll act out. There'll be bullies. There's going to be fights, and you have people getting suspended who never even threw a punch. Oh, you both were involved in a fight. It doesn't matter who started it. You're both being suspended. And when they say it doesn't matter who started it, what this is really started, first off, that's all that really matters. And violence does not start with who throws the first punch. That's definitely the escalation. You should be trained in de-escalation. But if someone says, "I'm gonna beat the living shit out of you," and they're getting close to you, you're allowed to believe what they just said if their other nonverbal actions are starting to show aggression. If I'm throwing the first punch, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. At any rate, I didn't want to do that today. I already didn't want to do that. Okay, so anyway, what this creates when both kids get suspended is it creates this passive aggressiveness, this passive aggressive society, which makes us weaker. Okay, this was in particular in the millennial generation. Generation X, we got into fights, and whoever started it was the one who got punished, not the person who won the fight. In many cases, the person who won the fight wasn't the person who instigated or started it. So the person who started it or was the instigator was usually the one who got punished. This is why during the 70s, the 80s, even most of the 90s, I would say, you would never hear these terms narcissist, gaslighting, or any of these other terms that are so common today, because these mind control facilities started creating what's called defensive narcissistic disorder. And then you have people throw some drugs in there and some alcohol in there, and they're never wrong and they're always right. And it creates a society of weak people, of narcissists who end up, and with the different problems that they will have, destroying people's lives. Back then, narcissists, there was no man-on-man narcissism in the sense of, if somebody was starting to victimize you in a narcissistic way back in those days, how narcissists act, they get punched in the mouth. They're instigating a problem. Now you can't have that, because whoever is involved in a fight, the person who instigated it or the person who's the actual victim, it doesn't matter. You're both wrong. You're both in trouble. So it creates learned helplessness, where you're always turning to this authority figure to handle your problem for you. And that gives them more control. This is some of the psychology behind it. I study psychology ad nauseum for many reasons. One is as a martial arts trainer, I had to know how to motivate people. When I worked in a prison, I was amazed by what I learned from criminal psychologists. I'm self-studied. I'm self-studied in amazement of my own ridiculousness. This creates, and I've put that out there in Rise from Darkness, a book that I wrote. It's well worth getting. It talks about Rise from Darkness, who are they, what's going on in the world. A book, Violence and Ego, that talks about dealing with narcissists. Talks about how to deal with these types of predators who are too weak to be physical predators, or they're too contradicting in their own mentation to be physical predators because they are passive aggressive. It creates contradictions. Okay? And then we learn these contradictions, we accept these contradictions, and we get even more contradictions fed to us through mainstream religion that I can get into, and probably will get into later on in this. I just threw up a few slides just to remind myself of what I wanted to talk about. I can talk for an hour just as one slide up. There's so much I know about this, but the main thing to remember is being conditioned, like Cory was talking about, to obey and not disobey. That obedience is looked at favorably, where disobedience, this is a dissident. Okay, this is what your controllers are trying to do. And they have you fighting within your own contradictions, fighting within yourself, which is one of the reasons why I left law enforcement. You get into law enforcement, you'll say, hey, I want to help people. And I want to make a difference. I want to serve something greater than myself. All that's true. But then, I do have to write tickets. Well, that's okay, because I'm going to still be there to protect people. But you're not really. You show up after the fact. And, in many cases, because of the politicians that rule and the court system that rules, the person who is more of a calculated, manipulating thinker, knows certain things better, is going to be the person to come out on top of a lot of different situations, and police have no control of that. But they learn to accept. I learned to accept. You accept these contradictions. And you make excuses about it. And what this is going to end up leading to, you have to make excuses about it because you have to live with yourself. You have to live with it. And something to think about is, what was I going to say? Doesn't matter. I'll come back to it. When we're raised with these contradictions, and we're raised to put order followers on a pedestal as our heroes, and in 2020 that was people in the medical field who became medical mercenaries and did their master's bidding to inject, to not themselves look at things to connect the clots, but just went ahead and followed certain protocols. The very fact that I have to speak in code about some of this fucking shit is ridiculous in itself. Okay, once rights are taken away, they're never given back. This is a historical fact. Here we have a German person is shooting somebody who's seems to be an actual Jewish, Semitic, Hebrew Jew, possibly. That's a lot of bravery right there, isn't it? But this is what order following does. And you see the troops behind them. And the German people at that time are like, yay, those are our heroes. And they're fighting. They're getting rid of the Semitic Hebrew Jews. 17 million of them died in World War II. Left a lot of room in Israel or Palestine. It left a lot of room in that area of the world without Semites there, the Jewish Semites, the real Hebrew Jews that are cousin bloods with the Palestinians. And it left room for Europeans who converted to quote-unquote Judaism and the beliefs, the Judaic beliefs of that invisible bearded guy in the desert sky who's a devil. That's another contradiction found within religion. God does not want blood sacrifices. God does not feed off of your fear, off of your shame. We're not born with some original sin to be ashamed of. Okay? Human condition since Mesopotamia and even back further has been nothing but slavery. It's just more of a covert slavery right now. All of us are enslaved right now. Just not the same way. There's more than just ball and chain slavery. There's mental slavery. We've been mentally enslaved to following, in this country, two political demagogues that are really, really good friends behind the scenes. And they're just doing what their masters are bidding them to do, like every other government official in the world. And the people that suffer are the regular people who just want to live, not these psychopaths. And that's something else. If I was going to get back to this, when you have that defensive narcissistic disorder created, it often leads to sociopathic behavior and even secondary psychopathy, depending on it. It could be drug-induced, alcohol-induced. If you do it daily and don't give your brain a break, all these different problems can come. Or people don't have emotions or feel about, they don't have empathy for others. All they care about is themselves. So every order follower in the world can end up doing this. It doesn't matter who you are. That type of obey leads directly to this. And it starts us into an internal chaos that we can't get by. It rewires our nervous system to be used to having chaos. Eckhart Tolle said, go find a bench and sit by a river. And just sit. Don't think of nothing. Breathe and just be. Because things are peaceful at times. Take in that peace. But like Cory was saying, we have been wired into chaos. And I think a lot of it comes through the school system and contradictions and the mental problems that it employs. Or that it causes, I should say. Humans are meant to be free. We're supposed to remember who we are and return to nature. That poor man just, what do you think he's thinking? He knew he was about to be killed. He had to come to some, murdered I should say. He had to come to some kind of acceptance about it. I'm leaving that there for a second. What was that guy holding the gun thinking? Did he think he was doing something righteous? See, the only way you can kill another human being like this is if you dehumanize them, which is what they're currently doing to the people in Palestine, at Gaza, the other Semitic peoples of that area. People aren't putting two and two together and asking the right questions. People aren't being effective. People are following what their master psychologists want them to do, what their political parties want them to do. They want it to lead to protests that are completely ineffective. Okay? This isn't anarchy. This is people who have been tricked into following what their masters want them to do. Go protest, which is completely ineffective. And one side or the other is going to say, see, we need more protection. We need more control. Look at this violence that's being created by anarchists that we really wanted them to do. And they get some agent provocateurs to start some stuff, and then all of a sudden other people will start, and boom, here you go. And this is like a photo op. I don't see nobody hardly at all in the background or in any kind of panic, and there's a picture of them being all panicked. Okay. These types of protests where you're vandalizing your fellow citizen's property or hurting your fellow citizen has no effect on what your masters want you to do. None. It's ineffective. It's completely ineffective. They don't care about these protests. They create them so that way they create a mechanism in which they have an excuse to enact more authoritarian measures for more control. That one side or the other is going to be cheering for until that control is utilized against them. That's how it works. Until our protests and our no, we're not going to have this, we're free, have actually some bite behind it. You know, the no's have to have some type of meaning. The no's have to be, the people have to get together to be able to protest in such a way where they're not creating destruction for their fellow citizens, where they're not giving an authoritarian government an excuse to enact more control measures and to demand and command through the threat of violence more obedience. This is completely ineffective. It's a joke. You'll never see me at one of these. This is not chaos. This is not anarchists. Anarchists will never be at one of these things. These are people that vote. Anarchists don't vote. We are not violent. Voluntarists were also considered. And the whole world should be, the natural state of humanity would be one of anarchism. No rulers, no slaves. That's the natural state of voluntarism, voluntary cooperation and association. Believe me, if stuff gets really bad, you're going to see people are going to come together because they're going to realize survival is dependent upon connection. And one of the things they do in these 2D screens is they want to disconnect us. So you're so disconnected, you just see some BS like this. When you finally do get out around other people, you don't even know how to fucking act. This is not effective. It's not effective. It's completely ineffective. I won't engage in it in the least bit. Your protests have no meaning. All they're doing is helping the authorities enact more authoritative control and more confusion and chaos. Okay, ado ab chaos, ado ab chaos, order out of chaos, Freemason. They will do all the chaotic things they can do, so you beg for the order and any order they can give, and they're going to give the order they wanted to begin with, which is total control, what they want. I still say something. I'm going to do a lot of conspiracy theorist episodes soon. I've called myself a conspiracy analyst. I'm going to do a lot of conspiracy theorist episodes very soon. Let me go back to let me go back to display. Display capture. How about that? Let's go down. I won't be in it no more though. I won't have my little head in it. There we are. Let's go back up. All right. So yeah, this is what happens when you're doing this live time and trying to still stay somewhat busy, I guess, while I'm in the middle of being in a waiting area. Like right now I'm in a part of life where things did get a little chaotic. And now I have to like release that need to have control and kind of let myself fall into that universal flow and not worry about what the outcome is. Go with the flow and see what the outcome is. I am in one of those in-between stages. I don't quite know what's coming next in my own personal life, where I'm going to be living or what's going to be happening. There's things going on, whoop-de-doo. And I don't consider it, just so anyone knows what karma is or natural law, cause and effect, I don't consider it bad karma. I consider it, the pendulum is just swinging to the other side a little bit, and luckily I'm aware enough how to mitigate the circumstances of that. It will go back fairly soon. But this is an interesting one to listen to here. Are you wired for chaos?
You ever wonder why peace feels uncomfortable? I mean, we can't just sit and stare at a wall. We can't just not be in our phones. See, when life is finally calm, we feel bored and we start drama and we chase intensity. Well, here's why. I mean, we've been conditioned to associate safety with chaos or even freedom with chaos, and so we fear actual safety or actual freedom. We're never truly free or peaceful. And when we're raised into a condition of this artificial safety or freedom, we mistake it for normal. And getting beyond the artificial is coming to the natural. We have to look at the opposites of everything within our life, which is why I wrote this book. Everything has a mirror, and sometimes we're projecting what we actually need. See, peace can only make sense when we've learned to perhaps embrace face our own storm. And until then, we just keep recreating the storm just to feel alive. So if you find yourself uneasy in stillness, don't run. You might be on the edge of real peace, and you might want to tag someone who lives in this chaos cycle, because we need to break the loop.
Something that I'll say in this is that's 100% true. And I even wrote in here, and I'll read it, I was like, this really actually hit home for me. You create the storm to find the calmness, because in the storm, once it's created, right, we need the calmness. And it's in calmness, when actually calmness is there, many people, and I was one of them, don't know what to do. We get a little bit itchy. And I touched about this in my book, Rise from Darkness, Rise from Darkness, but also Violence and Ego. Don't create the storm just so you can find that zen. find that zen when it's actually calm. Against the law of, I guess that's opposites, huh? But I thought that was very interesting. Let me come down to here, go back up. Let's get off of this. No. Display capture. Oh, look at all those skills. So that's something that happened. Like, I was in that self-defense situation that I could have definitely handled differently. And part of becoming a better person and being spiritual is wanting self-improvement. What can you do to handle something better as a teacher, even if the person is a narcissistic sociopath? Well, the one way you can deal with narcissistic sociopaths is you don't let them detract you on any of their side quests. You stick with the facts, you stick with the truth. Then you speak it, and then you cut them loose and get away from them. They will bring harm to those closest to them. And they are a direct symptom of the schooling we have today, these mind-controlled schooling that create follow orders, obedience, and what they display in their behavior are symptoms of that just not being natural. It's just not normal. So this is a slide from a natural law presentation by Mark Passio. It's an 8-hour presentation. I highly recommend it. I'll throw that into the links as well. Another one that I'm going to throw in there is the unholy feminine, which is part of the dark social engineering that wants obedience in school, that wants both people getting suspended regardless of who started the fight, that wants to teach you that through sitcoms and other different predictive programming or revelation of the method, dark social engineering, dad's a goofball, listen to mom. And it puts dads in this position when we want to protect our kids or we want to protect people. The laws, society, everything else makes it very, very, very hard to do. And with what's coming up in the world, real men are going to have to be willing to get together and stand up for what is fucking right. And I don't mean be violent. I mean have discernment. Okay? Don't debate dimwits. People debate because they want to win. There's a winner and a loser of a debate. Don't do that. I don't know. Instead, you should be having a discussion for discernment. Real men who are nonviolent need to be able to get together, stand up for what is right, and do it in a way where you're not destroying things, where you're ready to use defensive force if need be, but not violent. There is a difference, and I'm going to read that here. And I was a use of force instructor. By the way, just so anyone knows, there is a force continuum of scaling force that police officers and military people are trained on. Scaling force, scaling down, right? Sometimes they're very intricately trained on it. The lowest level of force that a police officer or a Marine or a soldier or somebody in a uniform who is armed, the lowest level of force that they use is their mere presence. The mere presence of a uniformed armed person in a position of quote-unquote authority, that they're armed, that's coercive in itself. Just so you know, that's the lowest level on the use of force continuum. It's not soft, empty hand techniques, or it's not verbal de-escalation. It is just your mere presence. And again, your presence ends up being in places that you really don't want to be because you're following the orders of the arbitrary dictates of immoral politicians that you know are immoral, and you don't even really want to do what they're telling you to do, and you think they're assholes too. Eventually, you're going to have to be this guy with the gun that puts his gun away and says, I ain't doing this shit. And simply refuse to do stuff that which is immoral to do, which is to initiate harm to somebody else through violence. So force is defined as the capacity to do work or cause physical change. And this is through energy, strength, and active power. I often explain to women how powerful they are, even more so than men, in many ways in their ability to influence men. And they could possibly influence bad men by not associating with them. That a man's strength over a woman comes in the capacity to move a heavier object from point A to point B. Ladies, you're needed more than ever. Now, the capacity to do work, cause physical damage, energy, strength, active power to move an object. This force of violence is the immoral initiation of physical power to coerce, compel, or restrain. And I would go back to this analogy. Motivation and manipulation are two sides of the exact same coin. One, you're using that tool for something good because it's motivating somebody, it's making them better, which will help keep them safe. The other one is manipulating them into a position which is going to bring non-safety. Okay? Violence brings non-safety and it initiates non-safety, where force, defensive force, is a good thing to protect yourself from that. And like I said before, aggressive force starting a fight a lot of times will start with angry verbal language followed up by nonverbal cues that show violence is about to occur. You don't have a right, you don't have to stay there. You could literally break contact in many cases. But what about those cases where your kids' lives might be at stake? Are you going to break contact? Sometimes breaking contact's not always a choice you can make. Sometimes you have to be there. So we go with force, okay, is an action which is in harmony with morality and natural law because it does not violate someone else's rights. All rights are property rights. When someone's trying to tell you what you can put in your body and what you can't put in your body, when someone's trying to tell you, you got to go here, you got to go there, you got to stand this distance, you got to take this, you got to take that, you can't do this, you can't do that, and none of those things are causing harm that you're doing or not doing, and they try to dictate what you do, they're claiming ownership over your body. Now, that's not an excuse to drink alcohol, smoke pot, and do coke every day for 12 years and think your brain's going to be okay because you couldn't handle school, adrenaline-inducing video games, and cheat codes that in real life don't exist. Okay? We get over to what violence is. Violence is coercive. It's an action which is in opposition to morality and natural law because it involves the violation of others' rights. Force, action which one always possesses the right to take, including defense against violence. So, force, you always have a right to use force to defend yourself. I always have taught de-escalation and conflict avoidance, but sometimes it can't be avoided. In today's society, when you're dealing with defensive narcissistic disorder, codependent relationship style issues from passive-aggressive, learned helplessness behavior in our mind control facilities that teach you to obey and not to actually think, you're not always going to be able to leave the area. But actions which you always possess the right to defend yourself. You also possess the right to defend others that are helpless if violence is being conducted upon them. That will bring you good karma. You would want someone to save you if you were being violated in some kind of way. Third rung down, violence, on the other hand, is an action which no one ever possesses the right to take. Again, it's nuanced, but the way they set up in society, only people in these positions of authority, only people with special uniforms, have a monopoly on being able to use force or violence. You're not allowed to use force to defend yourself, yet they're not going to be there to defend you. But this will always be true. It'll never not be true. Back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when fights would happen between teenagers or kids coming up, and whoever started the fight, sometimes somebody who's a selfish, narcissistic, someone who's going to be a future victimizer of people, got punched in the mouth, and it changed their fucking life. And they got humbled at an early enough age to see a few things, and they became better people. I'm not saying people should be punched in the mouth to become a better person. Trust me, I had my teeth knocked out. It didn't make me a worse person or a better person. It did nothing but knock out my teeth. It taught me some tactics. I wrote about that in Violence and Ego. Highly recommend getting the book. It's actually entertaining. But what I am saying is the contradictions that we create and start to believe in because of religion, which is violence is all hell, and it's okay to be violence in the name of religion, but in school you can't do anything but obey, and you can't defend yourself, or you get suspended. It creates this passive aggression. Listen to our politicians talk about the kids they're fucking killing. They have really nice $5 words they drop, and they do it in such a way that this is unfortunate that this happens anymore. But we tried to tell you, this is what you need to do, and they didn't do it. So now, so they have some nice words. You're fucking murdering people. Just speak the truth. We're murdering people. We're murdering actual Semites is what we're doing. We're going to speak the truth. We're murdering Semites. That's what's happening. And we're going to get everyone to fight everyone. Create chaos. You never have a right to be violent. You always have a right to use force. So they'll create these false narratives to make it look like you're using force. You have to know what morality is. You have to know, are you initiating harm? Are you doing something as an order follower that if a regular citizen did it, they'd get in trouble for it? More likely than not, in a lot of cases, you don't have a right to do that. If you're an order follower of some kind and you stop an armed robbery by shooting them, you have a right to do that. But any citizen would have a right to do that. I was talking with my adopted son last night. On Facebook, a few years back, I posted a picture of this hole put in the counter of a store, and it was a drywall counter. It was just a hole. Like a body had been in that hole. Well, the guy in front of him started to arm rob the place. He didn't have no special badge on. He stopped the guy from robbing the place. That hole there, I wish I would have put a picture of it, was a testament of force properly used. And someone told me that was fathering done right. That made me happy because it actually was. I'm very proud of who he's become, and I'm glad he's out of the Marine Corps. But yeah, that's force and violence, and this falls under what natural law is. And natural law is the universal binding and immutable effects that govern the consequences, okay, of human behavior and actions, right? We were beings with the capacity to know right from wrong. And when we see bad being done in the world and we do nothing about it, we are consenting to it. We are giving implied consent to it. So when all we have in the world is theft and violence, and we don't do nothing to stop it, we're going to keep getting what we've always gotten. Okay, we've been at this level of consciousness before and technology before, and we get wiped out. We have to start looking at the patterns and ask why. Cause and effect, karma, it is real. I've seen it at work in my own life in a very good way most of the time, and I've seen it in a bad way. It's neutral. It's neutral. It's just as neutral as gravity. Gravity, by its nature, does what gravity does. Thermodynamics. Fire, by its nature, does what it does. It's not coming for you unless humans are projecting it. It's just there to, a bonfire. You're not going to get hurt by it unless you stick your hand in it or something. Well, natural law is just that unseen force that dictates what we do, what we vibrate at, what we put out is what we're going to experience and get back. And that's the simplest way that I can put it. Again, I highly recommend going to Mark Passio's work for that. His 8-hour seminar on natural law, 8-hour seminar, is a very good watch. Also, the unholy feminine, because it talks about the epigenetic or dyseugenics, population control and population control agenda they have in place. Stay stuck in social media, 2D screens, porn, all this other stuff, right? Get away from human connection. Androgynize the physical man and physical woman in this 3D reality to where there is no gender. Create a gender war. Get women to want weak men. Okay? I'm not talking about role playing. What you do in your bedroom is up to you. I'm talking about weak men. Their biology still wants strong men. Trust me. But you're getting assaulted from all these different angles. And it is to create that disconnection. And some of the things that Jesus was trying to teach was natural law. He spoke out against bankers of the time, the Pharisees, the Sadducees. He spoke out against, religion. Jesus was an anarchist. He was said to have traveled with the Jewish Essenes, which were a roving band of gypsy-like anarchists with advanced healing modalities based on vibration, crystals, healing, energy work, healing. We have that now. It's called Reiki. They had that. Well, the Palestinian Bedouins from that same area of the world, cousin bloods, had the same MO. This is the miracles they performed. Jesus spent 10 years with the Jewish Essenes, according to these books. It could have been just as easily the Bedouins. Okay? He learned, he was teaching some of the things they're teaching in quantum physics now. That we're in a holographic reality. Maybe in a simulation even. That kid with the remote control needs to quit being so mean. But he told that the kingdom of heaven is within you. And if you look to the sky for it, the bird will be there first. If you look to the ocean, the fish will be there first. Look within. Yes, I am the Son of God. So are you, so are you, so are you. God is in everything. Teaching it in that way, it was almost like, that's why they, quote unquote, murdered him, or attempted to. I've studied a lot of his teachings in depth. He said, give on to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give on to God that which is God's. What he was really saying is, what is Caesar's is yours. Okay? Because Caesar had the spark of the divine, the spark of God within him too. Give unto God that which is already God's. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar. He's basically saying freedom. freedom is what is already yours, already God's. This is from the Gnostic texts. And in those Gnostic texts, they tell where Jesus actually spent time in Egypt, where Mary Magdalene was actually a high priestess. It goes against all the official teachings of the Bible, of the New Testament, that man put together. And you get a lot of religious people who say, I'm sick of hearing I trust God, but I don't trust man. I don't trust man. I don't trust man that doesn't realize we are all one, and that we all have the spark of the divine, and we are all gods and goddesses, and that the Godhead is a goddess as well. I don't trust people who don't know their own divinity and try to rule over others. That's the problem. Jesus tried to teach that, and he was crucified for it. Then, in the biggest trick in human history, they got people, even though he was against religion, he was an anarchist, he wanted true freedom without rulers. They turned what he taught into a religion, they twisted it, and then they made people venerate, in the biggest twist and deception of all time as far as I'm concerned, they made people venerate this object that was used to torture and murder people on. This crucifix that's being used as a torturing device. Well, we're going to venerate that. So you're venerating human sacrifice. You're venerating human pain. You're venerating all this stuff that these bad things, these bad beings, these pretend gods feed off of. What part of the entire crucifix story would make you think Jesus is fond of those things? You might as well wear a guillotine around your neck. That's my opinion. My opinion. Well, here we have Viking Jesus. Always got to put Thor in there some way. I'm not trying to talk to the masses anymore. I'm trying to talk to those people who are protectors. Trying to talk to those people who are wolves. Trying to talk to those people who will stand up with discernment without violence and not cause meaningless, stupid damage that just gives authoritative controllers, these megalomaniac psychos, more excuses to enact more controls that one side will cheer for, or the other, depending on how it's working, because they make everyone fight each other. We need to have unity, but I'm trying to see who's the other, who's the wolves, who's the other people that are going to stand up for what's right and speak out against what's going on. When children are being murdered, I don't care how many $5 words you drop. When children are being murdered, blown up, and beheaded, and people are being dehumanized in such a way where you're taking pictures with them and laughing about it, the pain of somebody else. We are all one. The collective karma we face is going to cause our ultimate destruction and continued enslavement, no matter how many more times we got to go through this. And I don't think I'm coming back, to be honest. I'm probably going to, with what I've dealt with, I know I should have that grit. I'll be back as many times as I can. I don't know if I want to play their game anymore. If I got to wait 40 or 50 years to remember who the hell I was, who the hell I am, what the hell I've done in other lives, what I've learned from other lives, why would I want to come back? I want to know everything throughout all my lives. Then maybe I'll come back, because I could start what needs to be done earlier. But I don't think I'm going to politely decline the afterlife review. I'm probably not going to come back. Send me into that black hole or the sun or whatever it is they do. I'm going to politely decline. I'm not playing their game. But yeah, there's Viking Jesus. Thor's my dude, for the most part. Looking for wolves, looking for other men that will stick together, not betray each other, and stand up and oppose in an effective way the immorality of harm being caused to others. And that doesn't mean getting violent. It means don't mindlessly do what your masters want you to do and burn some shit and break some windows and hurt other people's property or their personal, well-being. They keep you in these contradictions, and staying within these contradictions has you doing really confusing shit. So you have to heal those contradictions within yourself, even if you're doing them out in the open. And I have been. I'm not going to wait till I'm 100% healed. I'm maybe in the 90 percentile right now. I'm not going to wait till I'm 100%, or I'll never speak out. I'm not going to wait till I know everything, or I'll never speak out. I know enough that it's wrong to murder people. I know enough about history to know that the Semitic peoples in World War II, the Hebrew Jews, were murdered, and that the largest concentration of Hebrew Jews now reside in Iran, or the second largest, but more likely it's the first largest. Most of them were murdered in Palestine or Israel during World War II, and the Israelis now there are Europeans. And now they're doing the same thing to the Palestinians, who are the ancient Phoenicians and Philistines, that they did to the Hebrew Jews in World War II. You can't put two and two together? I don't get it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am the most pro-Semitic person you ever met. And they made the word Semite or Semitic refer to language. Let's be honest. The Semitic languages, offshoots of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic, were spoken by a certain people of a certain bloodline, the 12 tribes of Israel, the lost children of Atlantis. No one's putting none of this shit together. Oh my God, he's speaking some crazy stuff. Did you hear what he said? He said Atlantis. Yeah, I know, dude. Put me in a psych ward. I said Atlantis probably existed. Oh, wait a minute. Do you believe in the bearded invisible guy in the desert sky? You need to get put in a psych ward. If you're willing to believe in that, and yet you don't entertain other ideas, and they're now having extraterrestrial disclosure after years of denial. I mean, honestly, I became a conspiracy analyst or theorist after I was about 11 years old and found out Santa Claus was a lie. So start asking the right questions. And why is a good question to ask. The why of something is the most important thing. The how of something, the how you do something, well, the how can change in so many different ways. I'm not saying the why can't change, but the why gets disguised. Get to the bottom line of the why. And that's how we can prevent, really bad stuff that could be coming. But anyway, I was about to end it, but I talked about anarchists, and I showed a picture of burning cars, which is just people who are mind-controlled automatons doing what their masters want them to do, and it's completely ineffective, and it does nothing but bring more controlling measures. Well, by sharp contrast, here's a group of anarchists. This is from 6 years ago in Anarchadelphia. Here's a group of anarchists attending a conference for education. I don't see no fires in there. And I made it no secret that I was an ex-cop. That's dangerous. I was scared. I was a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. Because I wasn't sure if they got the memo about the non-aggression thing. And little did I realize at that time, I wasn't even an ex-cop. I still had an active police commission. I just didn't realize it. But, hey, welcomed with open arms. Sure, there was probably some people mistrusting. I didn't feel, after I was in there, I didn't feel like unsafe. One bit. So, I mean, there was a few creatures in the night that came through, but they didn't stay. They weren't accepted by the group of peaceful people that are there at a conference to learn. Voluntarists. that are there for education, to listen to speakers who are well versed in morality, well versed in the powers that shouldn't be and what they're trying to do with their technocratic society they want to create. It was a great, great conference. It really did open my eyes to a lot of things. I'm very thankful that it was put on. It's something I'll always remember. It was my first time, even though I'd already been studying down this road for about a year, since 2018. It was my first time venturing out and taking that chance, doing something different. I must have had too much coffee today. Maybe not. But anyway, I know I've been rambling. I've been a little bit different today than I usually am. That's consciously, purposely. I did cuss a little bit, and I should have. But with that, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thursday, and have a good weekend. Stay safe. They put a really old U.S. Aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, over towards the Middle East. I know they were wanting to decommission it at one point in time because it is 54 years old. I wonder what might happen to it. I wonder if that could cause something. I don't know. But yeah, there's things going on, so keep your head on a swivel. Have compassion, have discernment. And as I'm learning, don't be angry at people who are at a little bit lower of a level of a consciousness. Kind of help them along. I've had people do the same with me, and I hope I continue to have that. Because just like Thor, I do have a temper. And I have good mentors and good teachers, which I am eternally grateful for. And I just want to thank all of you. Some of you never even hardly met me. Some of you I've met and been with quite often. I love y'all. Put that love energy out there, man. That's not me being woo-woo. Put it out there. We need more compassion. We really do. So anyways, with that, stay safe. Happy Thursday. And peace out.